Welcome back to Reaching for Words, a podcast about language learning from the team at Spanish Obsessed. One theme which has become apparent in all of my conversations is the emphasis on independent language learning. This is the idea that each language learner should take charge of his or her own learning and puts the emphasis on learning rather than being taught. Independent language learners create their own path through a language and fit the materials, classes and courses around their needs rather than the other way around. My guest today is Lindsay from lindsaydoeslanguages.com. Alongside being an impressive polyglot, Lindsay specialises in providing coaching and materials for independent language learners. And in today's podcast, we talk about how to successfully strike your own path in your language learning endeavours. Well, welcome to the podcast, Lindsay. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so you were just telling me that you got back from what sounds like an amazing trip around the world.
Yeah.
You just got back last Tuesday, was it?
Yeah, like about 10 days ago now, I think. Yeah, it's been a busy year.
So where was it that you've been?
So we started off in the Americas and then we finished off in Southeast Asia. So most of the year we're in Latin America. So lots of Spanish practice going on over the year. Yeah, we were making a podcast and video series of short language documentaries actually called Language Stories.
Yeah.
So series 1 was all about the Americas and we've just finished filming series 2, which was in Southeast Asia. So,
oh, amazing. So you're kind of focused on minority languages with those language stories, right?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. It was interesting because with starting in Latin America, I didn't want it to just be like Spanish in this country. They speak Spanish too. So I wanted to dig a bit deeper, which did mean a lot of what we were looking at were sort of minority languages, but not always like. In the last episode of Series 1, for example, was about Guarani, which is spoken in Paraguay, which is spoken by 6 million people and about 90% of the population of Paraguay speak it.
Amazing.
So it's by no means a minority language, but it's, fits in that bracket of languages you never really hear much about.
Yeah, I think...
I would say.
In South America, definitely, I remember, you kind of assume everyone speaks Spanish or Portuguese in Brazil, right? But there's hundreds and hundreds of other native languages which are so completely different between each other and like nothing you've heard before, and people really do speak them like you're saying. So yeah, did you learn it or focus on any kind of new particular languages for yourself when you're out there?
Yeah, so Guarani was the one I focused on because I knew it would be sort of the last one or sort of towards the end of our time there.
Yeah.
Which it was, so it was good because I had more time to study, and that was the only one I really spent time learning, and I'm still learning now because I was able for the first time when we were there to actually buy books and stuff to to help me learn. So I had a week at a language school there, and then
there's schools dedicated for Guarani there.
There's one, I believe there's only one that teaches it to foreigners, and they teach Spanish as well, of course.
Okay.
But yeah, they were busy like all week. I had lessons on my own, but there was someone there all week that had been there for 6 weeks. Spanish lessons in the morning, or Guarani in the morning, and Spanish in the afternoon for 6 weeks. It's like, wow, how incredible, how busy they are. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine, I mean, not to put it down on things, but now you're back in London, it's going to be a tough language to keep going, I'd imagine. You're not going to find many native speakers around here.
No, absolutely. It's, but it's interesting because a lot of language learning is obviously speaking and talking to people and stuff. But part of what I love about language learning is that you can do a lot of it on your own. And so that's what I love about Guarani is that, it doesn't matter that there's no one around me. I can keep improving on my own in the meantime. And then, until next time I get the chance to go back, then I can go back. But I have a tutor online who I'm hoping once we've settled back down at home, I'm hoping to sort of reconnect with on a more regular basis. Oh, great. And so, yeah, that should help as well.
That would be a great language to, to be able to say you speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, it's, I'm glad that you mentioned, it's a good one to study independently because that's really kind of what we want to talk about today. On your blog, Lindsay Does Languages, I know this is a big focus for you. And in a lot of my conversations I've had so far with other, polyglots and language people, everyone's talking about sort of the importance of independent study. So do you think that it's a broad question, but do you think people learn better when they study on their own, or what's the driving factor behind that?
That's a good question. I think it's not so much a question of learning better on your own, because I think the ideal kind of learning environment would be some form of combination, because you need people, like I said with Guarani, even then, a lot of language learning is people. It's speaking, it's listening, it's actually connecting with other people. So you do need that element. But I think the thing that we often miss out on early on, especially if, we've learned a language in school and then later in life we think, I'm going to go back and give this language learning thing a go.
Yeah.
And we're so used to, from that school approach, having someone in front of us and say, here's what you learn, go home and learn it, come back next week.
Yeah, we'll be on page 82 of the textbook and pick up from there, yeah.
And we kind of don't get told how to go home and learn it a lot of the time. We just expect it. Okay, I've got these words to learn for next week. How am I going to do that? So by learning on your own, and I think learning how to learn on your own is a big part of this. And it sounds almost really patronizing to say it, but we just don't really learn that, a lot of the time, until I think when you go to sort of university, when you get to that age and that stage of education, then you're beginning to do more independent stuff, but if you've never been there, then that's going to be a really difficult thing to just suddenly pick up when it comes to language learning. And so I think the combination is really the best thing, because we can really do, you can have a tutor, and even if you have a one-on-one tutor and you're paying a fortune to have as much time as you can with this tutor, you're not going to have them by your side 24 hours a day. But what you are going to have is you and your own brain and your own self. So if you can learn how to do these things on your own and how to make the most of your time in between your time with a tutor or with a class or whatever it is that you have, then you'll be a much better language learner for it.
Yeah. I have some kind of questions around any tips you might have, but before I get to that, I kind of, when I think about this, obviously, when people are part of a class, or when people have things handed to them on a plate, they've got that structure, they've got, like I said, things handed to them on a plate. When you're a learner, for example, with a new language, let's say, focusing on, I can't say it, Guarani? How do you pronounce it again?
Yeah.
Guarani.
It's sort of Spanishified is like Guarani.
Okay. Let's say you're, as you were really looking to learn that, you kind of, and this is the problem with all languages as well, you don't know what you don't know. So that in itself is, for me, why everyone needs a teacher, or at least, some kind of structured course, because you can't simply just sit down and say, right, I'm going to learn this. Like, we need to figure out what to learn. So what's kind of your thoughts around that?
That's a really good point, and I think that is the big first stumbling block. Even if we get to the point and think, okay, I can do it on my own. Oh, okay. And my advice, and the way that I like to learn languages solo, is to have, as you say, to have that sort of course structure, to have something, like a teach yourself book, colloquial. Okay. There's so many different options out there, and if you've got one that sort of works through from beginner up to a certain level, it doesn't have to be that you start with, the biggest box on the shelf that is like complete to up to C2 fluency level. It doesn't have to be that you start with that, because that can be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
You could simply start with a sort of get started in, or basic Swedish or whatever it is, right? And then work your way up as you go. But by having that, that's going to help to give you that structure. That's going to help to teach you those things that you don't know. So that is really what I think is the benefit there. Or, like you say, having a tutor, or having someone kind of stepping in saying, right, here's where you need to go next, here's the bit you need to focus on next. But the interesting thing as well is that the more languages you learn, the easier that gets to know the bits that you need to know. You think, okay, well, last time I was learning a language, I really needed to know how to say want or need, or and these verbs that I just kind of can use from day one. How can I find them? So you know what you want to begin to find. But if you haven't got that experience yet, then it is tricky. And I think that's when a good structured kind of course book can really help to guide you through. So
that's, I guess, sounds like for the beginning stages, if you're picking up a new language, then you'd go out and get like a basic teach yourself type textbook, right? And it's interesting what you're saying, like those big intimidating packs say they'll get you to C2. I never believed that. I think there's no way a textbook can actually get you to a level of fluency. For me, it seems like, you start with this structured approach, but then as you go on, actually, that structure starts to loosen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think it's very difficult as well. Like the promises that we see on, on the front of or the back of a language book or a language box,
yeah.
Big one, then, you think, brilliant. So I'll buy this and I will be at B2 level in 6 months because that's what the box tells me. Well, no, the box can help you get there, but the box alone, just having the box at home on your shelf is not going to get you there.
Yeah.
It's like buying a rowing machine and having it sitting and gathering dust, in your living room. If you're not using it every day, you're not gonna feel that fitness improve. And it's exactly the same thing with language learning.
Yeah, I think I have bought. I've been trying to learn French. I did it in GCSE, so that's like when we're 15, 16. I got a reasonable grade, but I literally cannot remember any now. So I thought, well, I should be able to pick this up pretty well, and speaking Spanish, it should be easy enough. So I went out and I did what I think maybe a lot of novice language learners do. Not that I consider myself a novice, but I went and bought some courses. Like you said, I reached for those big boxes, and they're still in the cellophane. I haven't even opened them. It's embarrassing. So I think they should come with warnings, like this requires time and work,
Yeah, absolutely. Because that is it. Like, it does come down to us at the end of the day, as individuals and what we want to put into it and how much we want it. Because if we don't really want it, if we don't really find it fun to begin with, then we're not going to learn. And I think that's key as well. We have to sort of ask ourselves before we buy the big box, because the big box could be really helpful.
Yeah.
It could be exactly what we need. But if we haven't asked ourselves, hang on a minute, why do I really want to do this? Why do I want to learn this language? Is it just to say, hey guys, I can speak Russian? Or is it because you have a legitimate interest or, a reason of like work or family or friends, or you want to go and live in the place, whatever it is. It could just be that you love the music from that country, and you think, I really want to understand what they're saying in those songs. It could be something that sounds really trivial to anyone else, but to you, it's like the biggest motivation in the world. Whatever it is, if you've got that, that's your starting point, and that will help you to use the big box. Yeah.
So rather than sort of saying, I'm going to learn French because I should, or whatever, or probably as a New Year's resolution, whatever, have that initial spark of motivation.
So New Year's is perfect example. Like, we think, okay, I need to upgrade my life. I need to get fitter. I need to learn a language. I'm going to learn to play an instrument. All of that takes time. All of it takes work. It takes effort, motivation. And I think with the language thing, a lot of the trap that a lot of people, a lot of us fall into is this idea of, I should learn Chinese because it's going to be really useful.
Yeah.
But if everyone's thinking they're going to learn Chinese because it's going to be useful, chances are you're not going to be learning Chinese the best, quote unquote, because there's so many more people doing it for that same reason. They're thinking it's going to be useful to get a job. And actually, if it's only going to be useful to get a job if you're this good, if everyone else is this good. Does that, it doesn't work well with podcasts. I'm using my hands, but you get the idea, I think.
So Lindsay's doing the hand thing with different levels for the benefit of our listeners. So do you think there's better types of motivation or better initial reasons than others? So if you're saying, I'm learning it because I think it would be useful, that's not a good motivation. But if you're saying, I'm passionate about the music or the cooking of that country, are there some which are better than others?
I think that's a good question. I think that it's a real personal thing. And you could learn a language because you think it's going to be useful, as long as you actually like it, as long as you like the language and the process in particular of learning that language. And the process is the bit that you can change. So if you don't like the process, try and mix it up. Maybe the big box isn't for you. Maybe what you really need is lots and lots of online lessons with a tutor and just talking and talking and talking. It could be that's the bit you can change. You can't change the language itself. So if you don't like that to begin with, then you're not on a good path. It's not going to take you to where you want to be.
Definitely. So do you have any kind of tips for people out there who've maybe tried courses? And when I say a course, I guess I mean like a class, like an evening class. And one of the most common things I hear from that is it's good because I go every week and we've got a teacher, everything's decided for me. But after I've done this for 2 years, 2 years is a long time. And sometimes you listen to people who've been in classes for 2 years and their level's really